Hey everyone, I know I've been quiet for a while, sorry. I've been trying to focus on stuff, not very well. Having to really battle hard to push through these last few weeks. Trying to juggle a lot of things that aren't going to plan. Some frustrating things happening, and then some general industry stuff and whatever. So I find it really hard to make a video and talk about what's going on when I'm in those headspaces, and I just don't want to be making videos about me whinging and complaining all the time. So then I just tend to not, I just avoid it, like most things in life with ADHD and procrastination. I'm currently sitting here talk about things that I've been avoiding for a very long time. Sitting here trying to fully finish off the 3.0 firmware, Reform Master Pro firmware. I've had Beta 2 out for a while. Had no feedback at all, which is a bit disappointing. I had feedback from one person that hadn't even used it, like they installed it but hadn't actually done anything with it because they're not set up to reflow yet. But otherwise, no feedback. So I was hoping to get a bit more testing, bug reporting happening from users, but as I said, got zero. So I'm doing all that myself, and I'm finding a few things here and there, mainly outlier things, but it's a painful process. I've got code open, I've got the web interface open, I've got my oven sitting here, constantly open, close, heading up, cooling it, open, close, heading up, cooling it, trying all different things and whatever. I'm trying to get, I've improved quite a few things. I'm trying to get bake mode. Bake mode has a problem where if you set a really high bake value, this is not using PID, but using the classic mode. Bake mode was never set to really be running anything higher than maybe 120 degrees. But I had some requests earlier on, like with version 2 firmware, for people that are doing things like annealing and metals and other things in the oven, and they need 180 degrees. And so it's actually very hard to ramp an oven. So like if you're trying to get it to a set temperature and keep it at a set temperature, right? An oven, like a toaster oven, is not linear in its capabilities of temperature. So this particular oven, it says it goes to 230 degrees, but that's BS. Put it on high, full, and let it sit there forever, and you'll be lucky if you can get it above maybe 220, 221, right? And it really struggles to keep it at that because it's getting it to its maximum thermal limit, right? So having it get to 120 degrees and just like kind of sit at that level and bounce around that level is much easier than trying to get it to 180 degrees, because 180 degrees is getting towards its limit of thermal ability, which means it can't ramp as quickly, and it obviously can't cool down any quicker, and so but still getting it to not overshoot and to try to settle on a high set temp is actually quite difficult. And I've got it very close, but sometimes it works perfectly and sometimes it'll just sit under and won't come out of the initial warm-up phase. And of course then it's going to be totally oven dependent. And I can't just solve that by ramping it faster because it's going to completely overshoot, and we don't want that. It's an interesting challenge, definitely an interesting challenge. I've spent like 5 hours on it today. I spent about 4 hours on it a few days ago. I need to solve it because it's really the same process as what I'm using the device test mode, which is just the bake mode on steroids. And I've mostly solved it on the device test mode, but that's different because it's not trying to get to a particular high temperature for a very long period of time. Well, it may. I don't know what people are going to use it for, but it's designed more to be able to change temperatures and range temperatures. And so one of the issues I've got with device test mode is that if someone sets it to 180 degrees, now that I've fixed it, getting to 180 degrees for a period of time, and then they want it to drop down to 50, and the system will wait. The timer will wait. So let's say it's supposed to be 180 degrees for, I don't know, an hour, and then it's got to be an hour at 50 degrees. Well, it could take half an hour to get to 50 from 180 because the oven itself can't cool down. Like, you know, you set the SSR to 0, and so I've had to implement fan control, not just for circulation, and not just for set point adjustment, but it needs to understand now how to go from 180 to 50 as quick as possible. And there's only so much a fan can do anyway because the door's closed. There's nowhere for it's blowing cool air in. There's no place for the hot air to go out. So a fan will be effective for the first 30 degrees or 40 degrees, and then it won't. But that's maybe enough to kick it in. Anyway, it's just a challenge. I should have never done anything with this apart from reflow. Reflow is working really great, and I've actually been tuning it through this whole process of tweaking bake mode and stuff, and yeah, I've actually now tuned the reflow system to fit that initial ramp in the reflow stage when it goes out of soak. It was always coming up a bit long before it got up there, and then it was always sitting slightly under because you don't want it to overshoot at that point. And I've got that dialed in way better now. At least on my oven. It should translate to any oven. Anyway, so I've been doing that today. Been printing Reflow Master Pro cases. My actual printer has been so occupied for the last like 2 or 3 weeks that I've had no cases. I finally finished what I think is the final iteration of my new watch case, though I don't necessarily, it's not something that I can release the design files for, but it requires special heat inserts and requires 4 screws at the back and whatever. And also it really requires the screen being glued to the front like a watch would be. Unlike my other watch where it's kind of locked in but it's 2 halves together. This is 2 halves, there's a back on it. But the other watch, like the black one, the one I'm shipping at the moment, it holds the PCB between the two. So the PCB is stuck between the two. This one holds the PCB and the screen into the top. The screen's holding the PCB in place. If I pull the screen out, which I'm not going to do right now, I can then pull the PCB out the front. And that's the only way to do it. Like the PCB can't go in from the back and the screen from the front because then you can't put the cable in, the connector. Anyway. But then I got M2 nuts. Those nuts I'm looking at replacing for my RGB Touch, which we'll get to in a moment, which have actually been delivered now. I've got a reel of M2.5 5mm high M2 nuts, actually. These things, you're not even going to be able to see it. Anyway, it's a surface mount nut. It's not like the other ones that I was looking at. It doesn't require a hole in the PCB, and so you solder that end, the wider tapered end, to the board, and then it screws in, which like this. And so yes, there is a chance that you can rip them off the PCB, right? Especially if the screw goes all the way to the PCB and pushes against the PCB. The screws I've got, I've got stacks of different size, whatever, but they won't push against the PCB. But there's still a chance that if someone over tightens them, they could rip this off a PCB. But it turns out that if you over tighten them on my current design, it can also dislodge the heat insert that's in them and break it off the plastic. And then once it does that, the screw is permanently in the insert and you can't get it out, because as you unscrew it, the insert just spins around. So that actually happened to me on one of my things. And it just freaked me out because I can't put a screw in there now unless I just throw away the whole front. And in getting the screw that was in there out, because it was half in, half out, I damaged an LED panel. Well, it's not damaged. Visually, it's damaged. Like, it looks, you can see that it's been scuffed up and whatever on the back. So, I've got a bunch of these, but I'm not making any more. I mentioned on Discord, I'm not making any more. I don't know what I'm going to do with those yet. I'm going to wait. I've got PCBs at JLC at the moment that have been finished for 2 days, but they won't ship them. So I ordered a new design that uses the SMD nuts, just green PCBs, because they were like a third of the price. And I want to make sure that these nuts work. And I didn't have the nuts at the time when I ordered them. They only got delivered yesterday. I want to make sure these work and are robust enough before I commit to it, even though I've bought 1,000 of these nuts. I want to make sure that they solve this problem, because if they work, then I don't have to glue anything anymore. No more gluing, which is great, because the gluing is a pain in the ass and it leaves a bit of discoloring on the plastic sometimes. I've got to be super careful. And then once a board is glued in, that's it. It can't be taken off. If I take it off, I can't reuse the front panel again, because it's just got glue residue everywhere and then it won't sit flush ever again. So, like that one that's got that busted hole, like the screw, I can't fix it unless I just throw that whole top away. And I've just had so much wastage. So these are all, I'm not going to use these because I'm not making any more of them. And I'd already, like this had 10% to go, right? And then I've got a whole floor full of these that I've wasted. Like I've gone through like 3 kilograms of, probably 1.5 kilograms of wasted PLA, plus like days, like 6 days, 7 days in total of 3D printing for no reason, right? And so and the other thing is, not only will there be no gluing, and there'll be no insert nuts, so all that time it takes to do all those will be gone. They'll be much quicker to assemble than everything else. Now, we were talking about the watch. There's a reason I mentioned all that, because I also have some M2 versions of it. I can't use M2.5 on the watch, they're too big. But the question now is, can I change this to not have insert nuts in the case? That's only got 2 of them. Wait, I've got one here before. Different revisions. Not have insert nuts in the case, which is what this has now, right? And then the back that gets screwed on like that. But have SMD nuts on the PCB, because the electronics is on the outside, is on this side. Right, it's just an old board there, right? Because the screen's that way and they sit back to back. So the electronics is facing this way, so I don't have to do double-sided. So if I could squeeze 1 or 2 SMD nuts onto this, then I can have the back screw into that and not need, firstly I can get away with just 2 screws maybe, right? But not need to do inserts, which means I also don't have to take up all the space on the side, right? Like in these corners to fit insert nuts, because they won't be needed, right? They'll be on the PCB. And that'll hold the PCB back. And then what I can do is, rather than gluing the screen into the front, I just double-side tape the screen and the PCB together. So you'll still be able to get it out of the screen if you want to pull it out. I'll probably ship them not, like I'll put the double-sided tape on just on the screw, like the PCB side or the screen side, but not peel it and stick it. So that way you can pull it out, you can put a battery on. So of course we're talking about a new revision, a P8, but so you can take it out, you can solder a battery on, you can then stick it down onto the screen, and then when you put it in and screw it together, it's permanently held together. You can unscrew it and get the back off if you want to get back into the, the PCB for whatever reason, but it's not going to be relying on it just held together with magic, right? So yeah, I've only got a sample of those, like 100 of them. But that's like 50 watches if I use 2 on each. But that needs a PCB redesign for the watch. Yeah. And of course I've mentioned the USB. So this is what's held up my PCBs. My PCBs are JLC, a whole bunch of stuff. It's been sitting there finished for 3 days, but I put in the new panel of OMG USB boards, the ones with the fixed reset button. For those that missed the stream, I somehow moving the reset button around on the board, whatever, I must have touched one of its feet on the 3.3 volt rail, like maybe a wire or something, at some point. And when I was changing something where it says, do you want to update the nets? I go, yep. And I must have then changed the button, because no DRC errors. It just went from being ground in the schematic to being 3.3 volts in the PCB. And of course, the reset line is already 3.3 volts. It needs to be pulled to ground to reset. This now is 3.3 volts, and when you press it, it gets pulled to 3.3 volts. It doesn't work. So I only made one panel at the time. I've got a new panel at JLC PCB, and their engineers, as usual, stuffed up the thing. Like they said, hey, check the production files, and I checked it, and it was a mess. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. And so it's been 4 days of them stuffing around, sending me emails and questions. I said, you guys made this last time. It's exactly the same. I just changed the name of one net. It's exactly the same as you made last time. Like, they were just stuffing up the solder mask layer and the routing and everything else. Anyway, 4 days it took, and they finally today sent me a version of the file that was correct. So I said, okay, go ahead. But that's not going to now start till tonight or tomorrow, and it's a 4 day, anyway, it's going to be 10 or 11 extra days that I'm sitting here waiting for these other RGB Touch PCBs. They could have been shipped and in my hand and prototyped already, but they won't split ship it. They won't send what's already been made, because not until the new board is in production. Well, it's going to be in production tomorrow, but I'll tell you right now, they still won't split ship it, or they'll charge me, and I'm not going to pay an extra $40 US for these. Anyway, sorry. As I said, it's been a very frustrating couple of weeks with lots of some things going well. I don't say lots going well, something going well. A lot of things going wrong. Some of them my fault, like the button, or like going down the drain in my sink because they're too small and they fit through the drain. I also mentioned that on my stream. Some of it was just silly design, maybe, I don't know. Right. So I also mentioned in Discord, it's been a few weeks since I've made a video, that I had a problem with a whole bunch of these cases, because it turns out these surface mount pogo things that I've got, they're not magnetic, but surface mount pogos, I use 2 on each side. Do I have a top? No. Okay, I don't have any tops left, but there's 2 male ones on the LED side, and then there's 2 female ones on the top side. So it turns out that I was sent ones with all varying heights. So all of a sudden, like, I didn't realise, and all the ones I had first hand placed, I must have just by fluke picked up ones that were all consistent. But what was happening was I was assembling I was putting them together, I was gluing them in, I was checking them before I glued them. Like, I'd grab a top panel and a bottom panel, I'd plug it in, I'd flash the LED board, I'd get the top panel, put it against it, turn it on, have it work, I'd touch it, but there was no case in between, right? Both halves would work, no problem. I'd then go and solder the speaker onto the top panel, then I'd grab it, check it again, make sure the speaker worked. Then I'd glue it into the top, and then I'd go and put the bottom in and screw it together. And then half of the boards were failing to work. Like, you turn them on, and sometimes it would work, you could touch it, and sometimes it would just start flashing different RGB colours, which means that the touch ICs weren't initializing properly, or it would be working, and then I'd go to pull the USB cable out, and as I'd pull the cable, right, because the tiny little bit of flex on the cable would disconnect the ICs and it would start flickering colour. I couldn't work out what was going on. I thought I was blowing up the bottom boards, I was damaging them, whatever. I'd take a bottom board and I'd go and connect it to a different top, like that was loose, and it would work fine. I'd go get a different bottom board and connect it to the other top in the case, and it would have the same problem. And then, so it turns out that if I squeezed at this end on the case, it was working. But if I let go, it wasn't. But I've got stacks of units here, like the one I've got like 3 in my box that I've been developing on, doing the multiplayer stuff and whatever, but I've never had that problem with. So after investigating all sorts of crazy versions of these things that I couldn't tell when I was placing them under a microscope and then putting them in the oven, I couldn't see that they were all slightly different. They're just not making contact properly. So I lost 5 units that the tops were stuck in. I reclaimed the bottoms and the diffusers inside, but the tops, and I cut the speakers off. But the actual tops, I couldn't pull them out. I had to redesign the case, and I had to put a little lip on the bottom that when you put the board in, it forces it and squeezes it together. And I couldn't add that to an existing case. So it's just so much wastage on this. It's been really frustrating. Like I'm kind of over the project at the moment. I built my storage shields, just 24 of them. I posted on Twitter and in Discord that I went to make some 32 gig ones and bought the wrong size BGA, and so I can't use them on there, so I've only got the 16 gig. So I've released this on my store. I packed them all. I put a converter cable in there, like a battery, because these come with a 1.25mm battery connector. And then I've also shipping it with male and female headers, so in case you want to stack them. And I put them all together and put them in a bag, and then realised that I didn't mark the back of the boards if they were 16 or 32 gig. So I had to pull them all back out of the bag. So I need to go get my Sharpie and mark them all, just to double up the amount of fun. Anyway, they're on my store now, and I've also put in a whole bunch of different cables on my store, which, I'm expecting no one to buy any of either of them. Yeah, I'm not sure why I'm putting anything on my store these days. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks. I think I really need a break. I don't know what I would do with my time. A break meaning a holiday, but if I'm not here, nothing happens, and which could be good or bad, because there are some days where there's just stuff to do. But I don't know. Yeah, so I can't release my own GS3s, which I've got ready. I've got stacks of them packed in bags because I need my USB boards. I've got my custom pogos, which are great. I've got bags, so I can separate them all out to put them in bags for people that want them with the boards. I've got a carrier board I designed on my stream last week. I've got a pogo programming board that is at JLC with my other boards waiting to come here. That I just want to prototype. It's going to be like my programming board for my test jig, but it'll allow people to, it's just got headers on it instead, put the board down and flash it with pogos like an OMG S3 board before they put it onto a different board if they want to, right? Like how they're going to hold it on there to flash is up to them. It'll have a 3D printed jig. I'll have the design files online, so if people want to use it to customize themselves, and I'll also put them in my store. People can buy them if they want to. They're going to ship unsoldered, as in they'll have components on them, but they won't have pogos or anything on them. You have to put them on yourself. I'm trying to get like everything ready for the OMG S3 stuff, so when I release it, everything anyone would need or want is available. Rather than releasing the OMG S3 boards now and not having anything else to go with them and then coming later. Especially with the cost of shipping and stuff right now, I don't want to be making people, penalise them and having to pay for shipping twice because I didn't have everything ready. So I'm stalling the release of the OMG S3. Yeah. That's about it. I'm going to get back to this. I'm really close. Very close, at least to fixing the bake. Then I'm going to go on to solving the drop down of temperature on device test mode. And then I think I'm done with version 3 firmware. But yeah, that's it. That's all there is to tell you. There was a lot in the end. More than I thought there was going to be. Shared more than I was planning to, but yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back to it. Got to stop avoiding this. I'll try to be more frequent with my updates again, and not let it go 2 weeks between videos. But as always, jump on Discord if you're on Discord. Support this channel. I know most of you have got notifications turned off now because of noisy Discords, servers, and everything else. I get it, but I'm more active in that than I am, obviously, doing videos once a week or twice a week or whatever for supporters. So there's always kind of me yabbering about stuff in there, sometimes to no one. But yeah, don't forget to jump in there if you're not already. Let me know if you are on Discord and not part of the supporters group, and I'll add you. Okay, that's it. Bye everyone, take care. Have a nice weekend. Go Pies tonight. Although the season's over for us. Go Pies. Catch you all later. Bye.